Good morning, we can.
Great.
I can. Good morning. Yes.
Morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Slater. I'm the chairman of the MDTA board. I'm going to hereby call the meeting of the MDTA board to order at 9:02 a.m. This morning we're having our meeting in person at the MDTA headquarters, and in accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is being live streamed on the MDTA board webpage. I'd like to say welcome to all of those that are here and those who are listening with us this morning. As a reminder, I ask anyone who is in the room with us this morning to refrain from speaking unless you are presenting or answering a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Or answering a question to avoid any background noise on the live stream. So you can see that I'm having trouble following instructions as well. But this morning, we're joined by several members of the public. We have Mr., and please forgive me if I pronounce these wrong, but Mr. Champ Burnley, representing the Dahlgreen Railroad Heritage Trail Board. We have Mr. Walter Raskello and Mrs. Diana Donahue, who are representing the Oxon Hill Bike and Trail Club, as well as Mr. Greg Hinchcliffe. I didn't see Greg over there. Good to see you, Greg. And Mr. Donahue, who will be speaking on their own behalf. All of our guests today have registered to comment on agenda item number 4, so welcome to all of our guests that are here today. For those of you who are watching this meeting via live stream, we have posted the materials for today's meeting on the MDTA board webpage so that you can follow along if you would like. For the record, we have member John Von Paris and member Dante Carroll and Mr. Sean Walker from the CLA, who is presenting on item number 3, joining us by phone this morning. Before we begin for agenda item number 1, I'd like to request a motion from the board to adjust this morning's agenda. Agenda number 9 was listed as a contingent upon a signed agreement between MDTA and FOP 34. At this time, we have not completed those negotiations and we don't have a signed agreement. And so therefore, I'd like to request a motion that we remove that item from today's agenda, as well as agenda item number 16.
So moved. Member Cox.
For 1 second. A motion to remove agenda item number 9 and number 16 from today's agenda, and then move forward with those at a future meeting once an agreement is signed.
Participants are waiting in the lobby. To admit all participants in the lobby, press *21.
John, you still there?
Hello, who just called
Yes,
in?
I am.
Who's on the phone, please?
Who just called in?
This is Sean Walker.
Oh, great.
Okay, thank you.
He'd get dropped.
Oh, gotcha.
So I'd like to entertain a motion to remove item number 9 and then item number 16 that was part of our closed session and as a personnel matter to discuss at a later date.
So moved. Member Cox.
Member Canchemi will second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Gotta remember that pause. Motion carries, so we are good. So let me move directly into item number 1, which is the open and closed session meeting minutes from November 18th.
I'll move for approval of the open and closed session meetings of minutes of November 18, 2021.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. The minutes are approved, and we'll move right on to item number 2.
I'm accusing myself of the very first item.
Okay, so we are moving on to item number 2 with Donna. That's a contract awards. For the record, member Ganjimi has recused himself from this item. Donna?
Good morning, everyone. How are you? Donna DeCervo, Director of Procurement, for the record. I'm here to present 2 contracts today. The first contract is KH 3024, which is the I-95 Belvedere Road Interchange Project. I do have correction to the item. Proposer lists the JVs, which are the designer firms. The proposers are actually Concrete General, Corman, Allen Myers, and Wagman. So if we could make that correction to the record, we'll make sure the minutes reflect that as well.
Can you clarify that one more time, Donna?
Yes, Concrete General, So basically, they're all listed, but they have /WRAJVs.
Okay,
Remove everything after the slash.
okay.
Okay. All right, this was a design-build project delivery method for this contract. We are recommending award to Concrete General for $65 million. They were the first ranked technically and financially. There was a DBE goal for the design services of 20% and a construction DBE goal of 23%, and Concrete General meets those goals. So we are moving forward, recommending award. No protest was received on this project. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Donna, we're moving forward on construction at this point with this proposal, correct?
Correct. I'll defer to Will or Jim.
Well, is that correct? Well,
I apologize. Could you repeat the
yeah,
question?
you're moving forward on construction with this proposal, is that correct?
So good morning. For the record, my name is Will Pines. I'm Chief Operating Officer for the Maryland Transportation Authority. So to answer your question, yes, this would allow for us to move forward with providing the award to the recommended proposer, and they would do both the design and the construction since it's a design-build contract.
Has the environmental, all that been satisfied at this point?
The permits are not cleared yet. The team has been actively advancing that, and it is anticipated that they will be cleared for construction along with right-of-way.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's not uncommon for a design-build project, correct?
It's pretty fast-paced, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Great. Any other questions, members of the board?
Yeah. I noticed that they're all the bids were over the engineer's estimate. Do you know why?
Yeah, so there were discussions about that. The team did evaluate the bids, and the timing of the duration of this procurement has kind of fallen where the market conditions have changed substantially since the engineer's estimate was originally prepared.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is just, if I could add to Will, it's something we're seeing across the board. Our material costs are about 20% higher than they were a year ago. And even on the electrical side, they're about 60% higher than they were. So it's market, it's supply chain issues, it's across the board. So we are seeing some increases, and we're hopeful that that's going to get a little bit better.
Just a reminder, this is contingent approval pending the signed DBE plans.
Okay, great.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. I'm going to get used to that by the end of the meeting. Motion carries. Thank you. Donna, please move forward with 3024.
Okay. The next contract is MR 3024, the on-call signs, sign lights, and sign structures. This was bid out on June the 8th. We've received a single bid for this contract in the amount of $5.7 million. The bidder was Collinson Incorporated. As always, with a low participation, we reached out, sent out some no bid forms. We received 2 back. The responses were the title wasn't clear, and the second was that they could not participate at this time. We did extend the bid date for 2 weeks to drum up more interest and send out more bid notices. We did not receive any. So we are recommending moving forward with this single bid. There was no protest received on this contract. There was a 16% MVE goal, and Collinson is offering 16.39. There was a 1% VSBE goal, and they are exceeding at 1.29. This falls under our delegation. This will not go to Board of Public Works.
Thank you, Donna. This is, it's a little bit strange for me. It's not uncommon to have a single bidder on an on-call lighting
Correct.
project. We have that a lot. What's surprising to me is it's not normally this company. So, we get those. I think companies struggle with, some of these on-call projects because they just need to mobilize, they need to do some things, and
We did do a bid justification and found their bid to be fair and reasonable, and they do have a good reputation in the industry.
Great. Thank you. Have a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Let's move on to an update item from Deb and Sean Walker, which is an update on our auditor's report for the fiscal year 2021 financial statements. Welcome, Deb.
Good morning. Thank you. For the record, I'm Deb Sharpless, Chief Financial Officer for MDTA. On the phone today is Sean Walker, Principal for Clifton Larson Allen. They are our independent auditors and audited our financial statements. This item was presented to the Finance Committee earlier this month and now to be presented to the full board. In your materials is a presentation prepared by Clifton Larson Allen. So with that, let me turn the floor over to Sean to walk you through that presentation and answer any questions that you may have. Sean?
Yeah, very good. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
All right. Sorry I could not be there today, but we have a little thing going through the house here, and I didn't want to bring sickness to your meeting. So it isn't COVID
We thank you.
related, but it's a cold nonetheless. So first off, I want to thank you all again for the opportunity to be able to provide these services to you. It's a challenging time, but to do an audit, but we were able to fare through it and get to this point. So I'm going to flip us straight to slide 3. Actually, I'll take us right to 4. Saying we presented it to the audit. I do want to say a thank you to all the staff. I already told the Finance Committee, but the rest of the board should know that obviously putting together financial records and having them able to be audited is an accomplishment that everybody should be happy with. And the staff there does a great job with Deb, Chantel, Kenneth, Ken, Vicky, and many others that are involved as well. So I always want to show the appreciation for them. For an audit overview, we were able to issue an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. That's the highest level of assurance that a CPA firm can provide. We were able to do that. Some of the areas of emphasis we really focused in on were investments, capital assets, your debt, long-term debt, revenue. We had a little special attention on it. I know you guys are all well aware with the changeover of over to TransCore, some of the delay that has been in some of the billing. So we did make, there's an estimate that is around revenue that we spent a lot of time on. The intergovernmental agency relationships and also your just financial reporting overall. The audit has been, at the time of the Finance Committee, the audit was in quality control. It has been through quality control. We're making a couple little cosmetic changes to the financial statements. We received the rep letter this morning. We should be issuing shortly. As far as internal controls, when we were looking at as part of an audit, we do look at the internal controls around significant account balances and classes and transactions. And if there was something that a control deficiency, which we felt could contribute to a material misstatement, we would say we had a material weakness or a significant deficiency that depends on the severity. We do not feel we have one of those. We feel that the controls are still well designed and management does a good job of rallying the financial transactions into a system of record. So that allows for financial reporting. So happy there. We went through a number of these required conversations with the Finance Committee, so I was going to scale it back just a little bit. The significant accounting policies are consistent with the prior year. We didn't have any change in accounting policies. Those are located in the first note of your financial statements. And then as far as the listing of accounting estimates here, accounting estimates as part of an audit is a management's consideration of what they feel that the number would be. And we apply industry standards and look at the rationale and the methodology for calculating all these estimates and find them to be proper within a material amount. So those estimates here are your allowance on receivables, unbilled toll revenue, pollution remediation liabilities, capital asset depreciation, and also your pension liabilities. I have listed here a couple difficulties. Obviously, COVID here, there's more difficulties in the system than a lot of people anticipate. even down to the point of confirmations with third parties. A lot of people aren't working to be able to process the confirmations. So it takes a little effort. You have a lot of confirmations as part of your audit process. And then obviously the significant revenue estimate and spending the extra time there, along with some additional procedures we performed up with TransCore to get comfortable. We do not have any uncorrected misstatements or corrected misstatements. We did not have any disagreements with management. We did obtain representation today from management. You will get a letter with that attached. And then we didn't have to consult with any other accountants, and there was no other significant issues that we had to discuss with management prior to being retained as your auditor. Then the only other thing, this is just a heads up for the future. Just two things to consider is that obviously management is going to spend significant time getting their arms around leasing arrangements within the organization. There's been an accounting standard change that has changed the way that leases are going to be accounted for, especially when it's an operating lease, which may be a fleet of cars, it could be buildings. Operating leases are no longer in the accounting literature. They're all kind of treated like a capital lease, which affects the balance sheet. They're going to need to do calculations, identify those, and do calculations to post those to the balance sheet. And then the subscription-based information is the same thing, information technology. It's a very similar standard, just focused on software packages that you committed to over a number of years that are subscription-based, so a lot of cloud-based apps. Management is looking into both of these standards to determine what the nature and extent is. We just bring it to your attention twofold. One is that there could be a change into your financial statements that we'll talk about next year. And two, just to give you some knowledge that the finance staff is going to be working hard to implement those two standards. I think with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Sean. Let me start, just kind of maybe two question clarifications from me. One, there were no disagreements from management on this at all?
Can you repeat that again? It came through quietly.
I'm sorry. So there were no disagreements with management at all on the audit? So everything went smooth? And then
Yes, it was very.
I'd like to understand, and I'm not sure if you looked at this as part of this audit, but did you look at any longer-term impacts in terms of from the pandemic, or just kind of what the immediate ones were?
Sean?
As part of the audit, we always consider the nature and extent of the entity, but unfortunately, it is a little more about taking a look at what happened in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell from this year to just over the last 2 years, you can see trends going into the right direction. But I don't have any insight as to what that does to tolling operations as far as what's coming down the road for you.
For the record, I'm asking everyone that question because I'm trying to find the answer to what the long-term impacts are. But
And we, so to the extent of like looking into the future, that the only connection would be with receivables. The toll receivables is we go through a process to ensure that the receivables that are recorded on the statement and net assets are reasonably estimated for collectability.
Great. Any questions from members of the board for Deb or Sean? Wow. I know we're in good shape then.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deb.
And thank you, Sean.
I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, sorry, I'm flipping back and forth, I believe is our TIFIA loan. Yep. The next item on the agenda is our TIFIA item. We do have a number of folks signed up for that item. So Alan Garman is going to present item number 4, the TIFIA loan, and after his presentation, I'm going to invite the members of the public up to comment on that and work through that. Natalie, any suggestions on the best way to do that? Would you like the members to stand up, or would you like them to come?
They'll come sit at the presenter.
Okay, great.
So that they can be on the live stream as well.
Great, thank you. So, Alan?
Great. This agenda item is an update on the TIFIA loan financing process. This process is essentially a $200 million loan through US DOT's Build America Bureau. We're seeking to finance approximately 1/3 of the Nice Bridge project. It began with a letter of interest in August of 2019. Before we started that, we were advised by our municipal advisors that this process would be very lengthy, would take significantly more than a year. We're about 2 years in at this point. The bulk of that time has been spent working on the loan terms negotiation and the credit review process. And so we finished that process, and we were invited to submit our formal application, which we did. And then at that point, the next step was to go to the credit council. So we had a recommendation from USDOT's staff and also their credit advisors to approve us. At the August meeting for the credit council, they deferred approval and they were seeking additional information on pedestrian accommodations. So at this point, we've met all the federal requirements and we've provided some feedback on that, and we're just waiting for it to return to the credit council for approval. The next step after approval would be the rate lock to sign the loan agreement, and then we've projected the draw on the loan to occur in January of '23.
So we wouldn't draw that money for another year?
Exactly.
I know I'm pretty up to date on this issue. Any members of the board have any questions for Alan? Great. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to hear from the public on item number 4. Each speaker get 2 minutes on the comments, have any questions or those types of things. But when you are called to make your comments, please feel free to sit at the table with the microphone so you can be captured on the live stream. And then we just ask that you state your name and affiliation for any record. So at this point, I will invite up Mr. Champ Burnley to please come up to the presenter seat to comment.
Let's see. This, great. This,
Yeah.
great, how's that? Good.
Great.
Mr. Secretary, members of the board, Champ Burnley, I'm representing the Dahlgren Heritage Rail Trail Association. We're the 15.7-mile trail just across the river in Virginia. We're part of the Potomac National Scenic Trail. It's been 4 years since I presented to you all, and first thing I want to say is we want to see this bridge built just like you do. I mean,
Sure.
We have cars. We want to be able to easily get across. It reduce congestion, so we're for you there. At the same time, we've got a heck of an opportunity, and we want to make sure the new facility has accommodations for bikes and pedestrians that can be used by anybody, 8 years old to 80 years old, no skill level, but that work. And we want to help you get your loans so that we can do that. In the meantime, since I was last here, there have been 4 major developments. I just want to bring those to your attention. I think they're material and germane to this discussion. First and foremost, as we all know, we're in a COVID situation. And one thing we've seen both in this region and nationally is an incredible demand for things like bike and pedestrian trails facilities. I think it's kept us all sane to be able to get outside, safely spaced, get exercise, and enjoy these. And I think the public has shown that these are the types of facilities they all want. And I think that's the case here too. We've got a great opportunity to put something together. Number 2, and this is important, is with the passage of the infrastructure monies, the last I've seen is Congress has about $11 billion for bike and pedestrian safety. That's a lot of money that we can use for this facility, we believe, and that's a game changer. The third development, and this is important, is there's been an accelerated schedule on the closure of the Morgantown plant. What that does is that opens up essentially an 18-mile section of rail spur owned by CSX. So what we now have is we have the option to potentially connect to create a 52-mile trail network from the Indian Head through that spur to the bridge to the Dahlgren Trail. That's a heck of an opportunity, and trails like that draw tourists, they attract businesses, they're an economic engine, and that's changed since we last talked. We need to take that into consideration. I'll also mention that that connector, I believe, was mentioned in the Charles County 2012 bike plan So that, has been acknowledged by the county.
And we're running short on time, so
All right.
your fourth point, sir?
Fourth point is Governor Northam today in Virginia is announcing $245 million to outdoor recreation, $233 million of which will be for trails. That's going to be announced to the money committees today. So I think Virginia's in good shape. I would encourage you, Mr. Secretary, if you could call Shannon Valentine and have those conversations. But finally, and if I could just for 20 seconds, I would encourage you all to look at corporate stewardship. You all are a big gorilla down in southern Maryland, and I would guess for a lot of people that live down there, they don't take that bridge. All they do is they see New Jersey license plates on 301 going to 95. This is a way for you to give back to that community. But more importantly, as you try to attract talent, you've got to hire people down there, and to have a facility like this, if I'm looking for a job with MDTA, I've got to relocate my family, I've got to live there. These are the types of things that you can use to benefit your organization, to get people to work for you, to keep people, to keep them healthy because you're paying their insurance premiums. It's a real win-win for MDTA, just from a business standpoint, and to the board. I would say think about that too. Heck of an opportunity. Let's work together in good faith, and let's see if we can turn what potentially are lemons into lemonade.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Brownlee.
I've got handouts for you all that talk about this, so if the board wants to share those.
Thank you.
Please do. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Burnley. We will now hear from Mr. Walter Raskello.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Walt Rossello. I'm the advocacy chairperson for the Oxon Hill Bicycle and Trail Club, but I'm also representing the general sentiment of the Coalition of Bicycle and Pedestrian Advocates across the state of Maryland. We actually have a group that has regular conferences. Regarding the federal feedback on the lack of bicycle pedestrian accommodations on the bridge, these new consequences of the prior decision that was made to not include the accommodations provides a prime opportunity to re-examine this decision. Given the perspective of 2 years of additional time, the pandemic, and the additional demand that Champ alerted to, this gives additional perspective on the fact that MDTA is the only component of MDOT that is not providing complete streets. And these broken promises, and there was a promise, we've captured the press release from the governor when the bridge was announced that it would include this facility. The general public does not distinguish between MDTA and MDOT. And these broken promises are damaging MDOT's relationships with the public on other projects. Their trustworthiness to make commitments as part of other projects. The potential costs of any alternate arrangements that would have to be made for this loan situation change the calculus on the cost of providing bicycle accommodations. It's possible that the increased cost from alternate financing may exceed the cost of maintenance and the savings from retaining the prior bridge as one possible solution. With the recognition that MDTA is not in the business of operating non-revenue generating facilities, it may be appropriate to transfer that facility to another agency of MDOT or another group. As Champ was alluding to, this bridge is potentially the linchpin in a large tourism network, long-distance bicycle travel, the attraction of being able to go that high above the Potomac, get a scenic view. These things have economic development impacts for surrounding areas. And we would ask the Secretary in particular to recognize that. It doesn't go directly to your bondholders, but in the wider MDOT mission, it accomplishes, again, good relations with the public of Maryland and all of its economic partners. So in conclusion, I would just ask the board to recognize that each of us here testifying, 3-4 people, represent potentially thousands of people. This is a daytime meeting. It's 2 hours from Southern Maryland. So there are thousands of people who don't have the opportunity to testify in front of you, and we'd ask you to recognize that we're speaking for them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rescalo. We will now hear from Ms. Diana Donahue.
Thank you. My name's Diana Donahue. I live in southern Maryland in St. Mary's County. I drove up this morning for the express purpose of being here and expressing my opinions. I'm also a member of the Oxon Hill Bicycle and Trail Club, which I've been a member of for a number of years, and I'm an avid cyclist. When this bridge was planned, it was to be a 100-year bridge. It included a separate lane for bicycles and pedestrians. That was taken away for penny-wise and pound-foolish reasons, I think, to save approximately $60 million for a 100-year bridge. It's still a 100-year bridge, but unfortunately, it's 100 years in the past rather than in the future, because people who are active, who ride bikes, who walk, are a part of the future. And as Walt has mentioned, or someone has mentioned, with the pandemic, people are coming out more to exercise and to be able to do things to stay healthy, to stay outside, and to stay sane. This bridge had an opportunity to be a large part of that, as well as developing revenue, attracting tourism, so many positive things, and that's all been taken away. I don't know what alternatives there can be other than to retain the old bridge structure for use for cycling and walking and things of that nature. I don't know how much it's going to cost to go to alternate funding. I'm sure it's going to be quite significant. What happened to the $60 million savings to take away the bike ped lane? I understand that there are some so-called safety measures in place, a flashing light that says there's a cyclist on the bridge. I think it would make as much sense when people are going to ride across that bridge to hand out targets to them to put on their backs to say, hit me. That's how effective I think that lighting is going to be. We're so much better than this. We could do better than this. We should have done better. And as a fallback, what can we do now? The only thing I see as plausible is to retain the old bridge for use for cycling and for walking and other non-motorized uses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Donahue. Next up is Mr. Greg Hinchcliffe. Good to see you, Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, members of the board, staff, visitors. My name is Greg Hinchcliffe. I'm a resident of Baltimore City. I got here today on a bicycle. I am a member of quite a few bicycle advocacy organizations, not speaking officially for any of them today, just for myself. I'm, as well as a bike advocate, I'm a retired airline pilot. My career took me all over the world. I've had a chance to bicycle on all sorts of facilities and all sorts of places, and I've got to say that separated facilities are the way to go. And I am strongly urging that the nice crossing include some sort of separated bicycle pedestrian facility. It would do three things. It would comply with stated state priorities, which officially apply to everybody except MDTA, as far as complete streets, but it is state priorities to increase bicycle and pedestrian activity. It would provide a recreational and economic asset to that part of the state, and it would satisfy the feds as far as getting your financing. Years ago, I would have said that the best way to do this was to include this as part of the new bridge. That ship has sailed. I would say at this point that the best way to do it would be to retain the old bridge. I understand that there are issues with maintenance, that nobody wants to pay for it. I am an engineer, but not that kind of engineer. I would only point out that maintaining it to support bicycles, pedestrians, and the occasional support or emergency vehicle is far different than the amount of maintenance necessary to handle the dynamic loads of 60-mile-per-hour concrete trucks, which is what we're doing now. I would also point out that if we don't demolish the thing, we save probably a couple gazillion dollars of that cost, which could go towards the maintenance of the facility as a bike ped facility. Finally, I would ask you to stop saying that the new bridge, as designed now, has bicycle accommodation. I've ridden in all sorts of conditions. I've ridden on the shoulders of interstates. I would rather ride the Beltway because of the slope. The speed differentials and sight distances will be such that this will be far more dangerous than riding the Hayden Bridge. I have ridden on the Hayden Bridge, was one of the advocates for opening it up to bicycles. Flat, straight, good sight distance. Here you're going to have some cyclist grinding up the hill at 5 miles an hour, approached by a inattentive motorist coming from behind. Or he's going to be flying down the other side, maintaining a pretty good speed, but we know what kind of speed the trucks are maintaining as they come down that hill. Once again, that's not anything that any advocate or, I think, engineer would call satisfactory bicycle accommodation. So my bottom line is keep that old bridge, figure out how to do it. Other people have told you the benefits of tying it in with a large trail system. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Greg. Our last speaker this morning is Mr. Dan Donahue. Mr. Donahue.
Good morning. My name is Dan Donahue. I'm from Southern Maryland. I'm representing myself. When I learned about some of the details on the alleged access for cyclists, it's, I would think the state of Maryland could be sued when cyclists are killed, because that's not a best practice in terms of bicycle safety, getting across a bridge. I've heard a couple of people talk about rehabbing the old bridge, but I would like the council to consider if there are these different cycling enhancement sources of money, might it be possible to look at adding a path underneath the roadway deck that's attached to the structure supporting the new bridge? That's about all I have to say.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue, and just want to take a minute and thank all of the speakers that took their time today. I recognize it was a long trip, and thank you for coming up today. That does conclude our public comment. At this time, I'm going to continue on with the agenda. It looks like, Mr. Garman, you are, wait 1 second. You know, one thing I'm thinking about here is this is a unique situation for me. You know, I wasn't in the secretary's seat, and I wasn't on the board when the decisions were made. So, you know, I would like to take a minute and probably ask Executive Director Ports to kind of give us a sense of kind of the thought process that was there when that decision was made. I think some of the board was here, some of it wasn't, but maybe Jim can give us a little bit of a sense of that, because I think it would help me as well.
Thank you. Sure. As you know, I wasn't in this position at that time either. I was
Right.
Deputy Secretary. But I guess I should probably clarify a few things first. You know, as we had mentioned before, we do have bike accommodations. And those bike accommodations are probably, I believe, a little over $2 million, Will? And it does have a lot of safety involved in that. As a matter of fact, the accommodations are probably, you know, more than what you would see on a regular bike path on either side of the bridge on the highway system, right? And so we are trying to look out for the bicyclists. We do think it's important. Safety is important on our highways for everybody, pedestrians, bicyclists, and of course vehicles. To address the the bicyclists' concerns, we did a thorough investigation of what it would take to keep the old bridge. And we heard from Charles County that it would be a significant economic development opportunity. We heard from Virginia that it would be a significant economic opportunity for them. And however, as you know, we can always spend money on facilities that we own and operate. Okay, now we won't be operating this bridge anymore. So what we did is we went into negotiations with both Charles County and the state of Virginia and asked them if they wanted to take over the bridge for bicyclists and pedestrians. Because if they felt it was really going to benefit them economically, then the economic impact, the significant impact that they talked about, would more than offset any maintenance that it would take for the old bridge. Through those negotiations, both Charles County and Virginia declined to take over that bridge. So it left us with no alternative at that point. Now, I do want to clarify that the governor did say that he promised that we would put the bike path in the RFP, and we did. We did put it in the RFP, but when we received the submittals, we found out that it cost $60 million for the bike path. And so, you know, funds not being unlimited, and we have a lot of safety concerns through our entire system, especially on I-95, we had to address some other safety issues. The issue that we were faced with was on I-95, where it goes from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. One, it creates a bottleneck, significant backups at all times during the week and on a regular basis. But more importantly, the bottleneck in that lane configuration and lane shifting also created a problem with increased crashes, injuries, and deaths in that area. So when faced with that decision on where best to prioritize or utilize the funds from the MDTA, the decision for the board was, do we spend approximately $60 million on a stretch of highway in the mid-Atlantic that carries nearly 100,000 people per day versus 17,000 per day in Charles County, and by doing so, it would reduce crashes, save lives, and reduce injuries? Or do we spend that same amount of money on a bike path? And I think that decision, in, quite frankly, most people's minds, was a pretty easy one. And I believe that the board, made a fiscally responsible decision when faced with saving lives, reducing injuries, or creating the bike path with the same approximate money. And so that's where the decision came down. It's a difficult situation in that there's only so much money to spend, and where do you spend it for the benefit of the most people and create the most safety?
Thanks, Jim. Maybe one question I've got. A couple of thoughts and ideas I want to kind of explore a little bit with outside of MDTA. But, well, on the old bridge, how's that scheduled in terms of the demolition? Is that like at the end of construction? Is that, how does that work?
After new one's built, obviously.
Yeah, it's true. Sorry.
That's correct. So the new bridge is proposed to open at the end of next year, 2022, at which point the utilities on the existing bridge are already going to be moved over, and so it's planned that the contractor would commence the demolition of the existing bridge immediately.
And is that tied to any permit? Is the demolition tied to any permitting?
So in the contract, it is tied to the permitting. The base contract included the removal of the entire existing bridge. So the existing bridge, we're actually receiving credits from the removal of the impervious surface of that existing bridge. Additionally, so that's stormwater credits. Additionally, each river pier impacts, the existing bridge impacts a certain footprint of the natural river bottom. So we also receive credit from the permitting agencies for removing the existing bridge because of the amount of footprint of natural river bottom that's reestablished from the removal. The one caveat is the design builder, we did also, in addition to the bike path bid alternative, we did include in the contract a bid alternative for leaving portions of the existing bridge for migratory bird habitat. That would not be leaving the deck and would not be leaving most of the bridge. It just leaves select piers where we could establish those migratory sanctuaries, essentially. That would require a permit mod, and the design builder is evaluating that right now.
Okay. All right, thank you, Will. I recognize the MDTA limitations.
Jim reminded me of one other permitting impact. So,
Oysters.
yeah, so the other point is, in addition to the mitigation credit that we get from the impervious surface removal and the reestablishing the footprint, we also receive credit for using the debris from the existing bridge to establish oyster reefs.
Okay, yeah, that's great use.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will. I do understand the MDTA limitations, and, I can think about things outside of MDTA, but thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Will.
And thank you again for everyone coming up. Now, call Alan back up for board resolution on the TIFIA.
This is Board Resolution 21-06. It amends the prior Resolution 2105. It's essentially the delegated authority from the board to management to continue with the TIFIA loan process. It was expiring, the old resolution was expiring this month, and the new resolution essentially just extends it for a year to December of '22. This item was reviewed with the Finance Committee recently, and they recommended that it move forward to the full board for approval. The resolution has a couple of limiting provisions, the date, December 22, and then also the $210 million limit. And it also requires us to come back to the board and report on results once the loan agreement is signed.
Thank you. So this is pretty administrative type of a thing?
Yes.
As discussions are ongoing. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the extension?
I'll move for approval of Board Resolution 21-06.
Member Ardinger, I'll second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Alan. Motion carries. Thank you. I'll turn it now over to Deb to give us an update on the traffic and revenue.
Thank you. Again, for the record, my name is Deb Sharpless, Chief Financial Officer for MDTA. With me today is Walt Long, Acting Revenue Supervisor. So in your board materials, we are reporting out where we're comparing our traffic and revenue forecast for the period of July 21st, 21 through October 31st, 2021. This analysis will be updated monthly as we continue on. The finance office, we had a presentation earlier about the financial statements. A lot of time, a lot of emphasis has been spent on those financial statements, and so now far more attention and time is being focused on this analysis, especially because we have some actual performance that we can compare to our forecast. So a couple things before I jump into the materials. The first thing is we have we have a forecast, and then we have actual revenue. So when doing this analysis, we're comparing what did we anticipate would be collected as of October 31st versus what was actually collected. If you recall, for our traffic and revenue forecast, it's done on a cash basis. That's because that's what our trust agreement requires, and it aligns with the trust agreement because we're worried about debt service coverage and rate covenant. That's different from the financial statements, which are done on an accrual basis. That's when you earn the money, not necessarily when you collect or disperse the money. So the first thing on the top table, you see that our actual revenue on a pure cash basis, we are $14 million below forecast from where we expect it to be October 31st. Next, you see us making adjustments, things that we're calling timing differences. Now, timing differences are $18.4 million. A timing difference is something that we have not processed or collected as of October 31st, but we still reasonably believe we will collect it in FY22. If there was something that we expected that we have doubt over collections, it is not part of that $18 million. And so the next part of the table on page 1, you see where we take the forecast and then we're subtracting the adjusted revenue, which includes these timing differences, which shows we're $4.4 million ahead of the forecast. Now, that's good news, right? Don't want to take away from that, but as part of this analysis and revenue for a multitude of reasons, backlog and AET and COVID and readjusting trends to what our new normal is, all of these factors make forecasting our revenue and analyzing our revenue much more difficult. And so in this analysis, it was really important for us to understand whenever we differed from the forecast, whether we exceeded the forecast or we were below the forecast on a type of transaction basis, understanding that is critical because some differences are short term. They're impacting us this fiscal year and only this fiscal year, where other types of transactions, if they could have a long-term effect. In other words, not only are we maybe above or below the forecast this year, but we should expect the same to happen in future years, which they have an impact on our long-term financial forecast. So, and that was part of the analysis that we did, and part of the reason for the level of detail that we have. So now, if we move on to page 3 of your materials, the first thing you see at the top is where the forecast was $271.1 million, actuals was $257.1 million for a difference of the $14 million I mentioned a few minutes ago. The next section is what we're calling timing differences. And you can see from the second to the bottom line is the $18.4 million I mentioned that are timing differences, and then the adjusted difference of the 4.4. Now the timing differences, they have 3 categories. Each of those are underlined and in italics. The first one is EasyPass FY22 transactions. This year's transactions, what's occurring with those? And we have a handful of days or partial days, whether home or away, that hasn't been processed yet. Then we also have a lag in some of the away agencies processing. Whenever something is outside of a 60-day window, it requires what we call a filter lift from the away agencies. That's a time-consuming process, and that's part of what contributes to lag. And then on a smaller scale, there's some image files that the region of interest is being corrected. That has a minimal effect here, greater effect in the other areas. So for our current transactions, we have a $2.9 million timing difference for this year's transactions. Now, we'll talk more about those in a second when we do talk about the analysis. The next part of the analysis has to do with the backlog transactions, starting with EasyPass. And you can see that we have more days that we still need to process, that we expect it to process as of October 31st. But the bulk of this money, it has to do with away agencies. It is the transactions for the away agencies, and that ties back into the filter lifts and the additional time that that's taking, as well as us working with our partner agencies in IAG to provide those transactions in the manner that they want. So additional analysis, additional work, whether it's on our part or their part, is adding time to that process. And then the last category is video toll timing differences. Now, video tolls are a combination of current year and backlog. We don't have the ability right now to split them out, nor was the financial forecast divided out, current and backlog. And we've mailed 3.1 million less transactions than what we had forecasted and through September. Now, the reason that we're stopping at September is because generally there's a 30-day lag in the collection. So if we mailed a transaction on October 15th, we wouldn't have expected collections in October anyway, so that's why we needed to cut off on September. Okay. So the next part of the analysis found on page 4, this is starting to answer the question why. Why are we above or why are we below? And that is the critical element of this. So the first part is we have about $7.8 million of transactions that was not in our forecast. So we processed them during this time period. It's part of our actual revenue, but it wasn't in the forecast itself. Okay, that is a short-term. This year impact. It was a plus for this year. It's not a plus that we're going to see in future years. The next item, it has to do with Easy Pass. Daily Easy Pass actual average revenue. It's lower than forecast. It's 5.5 million. That's an area, and you can see even further below, as part of our next steps to analyze that far more. That has the potential to have a longer term impact on us. You know, that it can be, was the assumptions about COVID recovery, were they a little too aggressive? You know, we had a good recovery last year with COVID. We tracked it carefully. You know, should we have flattened out that recovery a little bit? It could be that. It could be, and therefore that means we have less traffic on the road overall. We could have less commercial than what we forecasted. 2-axle vehicles could be receiving more discounts than we forecasted. In other words, if our concentration of Maryland Easy Pass customers is higher in relation to out-of-state, Maryland Easy Pass customers receive a 25% discount when their transponders properly mounted and it's electronically read, their tolls are 25% less. Or we could have a greater amount of commuters. That type of analysis is what we need to do to understand why is our average below. The next one has to do with 21, and that's the backlog. Now that forecast is a little higher. It's much less significant. That's a short term, right? Because as soon as the backlog's gone, it's impacting this year and only this year. Now on a positive note, our collection rate's been higher than what we forecasted for video tolls. That's positive. Another thing we need to work in here that we haven't been able to yet is pre-NOTD payments. We're seeing a healthy amount of pre-NOTD payments. Customers taking advantage of that 15% discount if you pay your NOTD online prior to us mailing them a notice. So that's, and then the last thing, pay by plate was lower than we forecasted. There's marketing efforts, all part of Drive Easy MD, branding and creating more and more awareness. That'll help address there. And the last things in your materials is attachment A and B, and that's just, this is actual, this has no adjustments for timing in it. And it's breaking out actual revenue in relation to the forecast based on the payment method, as well as by the facilities.
Okay.
So if there's any questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you, David. Actually, that's pretty stable and good.
Deb, on our timing differences, I mean, we have an allowance for doubtful accounts there, it's like 14 million. That we're owed, I guess, basically.
Right. So an allowance for doubtful accounts would be on our financial statements because we're looking forward and we're counting revenue. If we collect where we had a receivable for last year, or this year, let's call it last year, right? Because we're in 22, we just presented the financial statements for 21. When we collect that this year, it's revenue for last year. We don't count it this year. In this case, if we collect it this year, it's revenue this year because it's on a cash basis. So that 18 million is all revenue we reasonably expect to collect. Walt,
So the numbers were higher and you've reduced it somewhat?
there have
9%
been
or something like
there
that?
have been some adjustments, particularly with the away agency transactions. They're getting older, that we're making some adjustments. Walt has done incredible analysis. Watching him with Excel and watching him how he can analyze such large amounts of data is amazing. When I watch him, I was kidding with him one day, and I said to him, when you watch me maneuver, which I think I'm pretty decent in Excel, I said, you must feel like you're driving Miss Daisy or watching Miss Daisy drive compared to the work that he can do. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
This is Member Von Paris. Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead, Member Paris, and I'll get to Member Erdinger after that.
Okay. Or just a comment. On page 4, as Deb mentioned, the Easy Pass, that $5.5 million number. I agree. Certainly something to watch, but more detail is needed, I feel, and really digging into that and looking at all things that could impact that stream. And Deb, do you know, as far as issuance of transponders, is that up, down? Are we able to distribute them in the same manner as we always have, or has that been impacted by the pandemic? Do you know, or can you get back to us on that?
we can get back to you on that. I mean, we still have the same channels available to customers. They can go online, they can call the call center. We have the on-the-goes at the Giants and the Wise markets, MBAs. But specifics about how many transponders have we issued, are we above our normal trends or below, we can certainly look at that. And so from a revenue analysis perspective, believe it or not, the issuance of Easy Pass transponders and is our issuance up or down, that's actually not a factor in analyzing revenue. And you might think it would be, but it's not, because it's about volume of transactions. And we're encouraging customers, infrequent customers, the trip to the beach, we're encouraging infrequent to have transponders. Put a transponder in all your cars. Don't have to flip it back and forth. So some of the increase in transponders, they may be more infrequent users than frequent, and so that's why the issuance of transponders isn't something we analyze when understanding our revenue and what's happening.
Especially now that ours are no cost.
Right.
Member Erdinger?
Deb, thank you. I have two questions. One, and both, I think I just need clarification for my own understanding. So just repeating the 18 million, the timing difference, there was some calculation that went into, was it a percentage of what you think is going to be uncollectible tied into the number of days outstanding? Is that how we worked it?
Sure. Let me let Walt answer that question, and he'll keep it at a higher level, his approach.
Yeah, it's basically for all the 2020 transactions that were remaining to be processed for IAG, just because it's taking longer for them to process, just to be conservative, we just haircut. We take the lump sum, the total revenue amount, and just cut it
Good.
by a percentage.
Good. And I want to make sure I understand this one sentence. It's the last sentence in the analysis. It starts off, should our current revenue performance in comparison to the forecast for the first 4 months continue, will still exceed our financial standards. So as I understand, worst case scenario, which is the revenue, forget, factoring in these timing differences, we're still good.
Absolutely. And I'm, Member Orange, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I actually intended to start off with that, and it slipped my mind. And this year, our coverage is extremely high, extremely high, because, again, this is on a cash basis, and we had 21 revenue on an accrual basis that's being collected in 22. So we have this year's revenue plus a chunk of 21. So we could be under our forecast for this year, only this year, 20 million every quarter, and we will still have good coverage. That's what's meant by that statement. Okay, but I don't want to give any false thoughts that. Remember, let me back up. You know how I said some things are short term and some things are long term? Okay, that's a short term. This ample coverage is short term. It's FY22, and so that's how these timing differences are not impacting us from a coverage perspective. And our internal conversations, we are always balancing revenue recognition, because there are some customers that wish the older transactions, they wish we would just process them all, 24 hours, 100% of them posted. And then you have other customers that need them spread out. And so we're balancing the timing of the speed in which we process to have that balance. But
Thank you.
Rosen?
So, just to be clear in terms of what the next steps are in terms of your analysis, I guess, when I look at what I hear you say as far as the long-term impacts, that's more on the negative side than the positive side. We have to look into it. This is only for 4 months of the year. So, we multiply that out, assuming it's pro rata, then that's a pretty significant delta. Number one. Number two, are the consultants going to be? Are we going to ask them to get to this level of detail in the future so that the estimates that they provide us are more accurate? So since we're relying on them for our budgeting and forecast.
So the first thing is the understanding the why. For the long term, they can be positive and negative, right? So, example, the collection rate being higher for video tolls. That has that'll have a long-term impact. Through this, there are some adjustments in how the forecast is presented, what numbers they're combining and what they're separating out. We're going to ask them to make some adjustments so that how they're presenting it is how it's effective for us to analyze the data. So we will make some adjustments. But to the timing differences, that's on MDTA. That's us either, not anticipating as much of a lag with away transactions that is taking longer than we anticipated. We slowed down something because we're trying to help customers. So the timing differences, that's in our control, because we advised our CDM Smith, our independent traffic and revenue consultants, that this is where we would be. So the timing difference is not a reflection of their forecast being wrong. And so had we processed, we would have only been $4 million ahead of our forecast on 271 million. So that is considered a very accurate forecast. So I hope that answers the question, but we work very closely with them, just regularly. And they appreciate the analysis that we do, because it helps them in their work as well.
Any further questions from the board? Thank you, Devin Wall.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump out for 2 minutes on something I'm going to ask Deputy Secretary Powell to just step in for these things first.
Good afternoon. For the record, Sean Powell, Deputy Secretary / Acting Chairman. I was out in the hallway warming up, so performing the role of Greg Olson for the next two items. We have two approval items. John's on his way up now, so when he's ready. Good to see you, John.
Good to
It's
see
usually
you,
via
John.
Zoom.
I finally got a face.
I know. A tip of the hat to you. I was at Winter Mako, and the folks at AT&T have been very pleased with like some of the FirstNet help that you've given them on right away. So they wanted me to pass that along. So thank you very much.
Good morning, members. For the record, my name is John Wedemeyer. I'm the Real Estate Services Manager for MDTA. I got two items on today's agenda. The first one, I'm seeking your approval to convey the Point Breeze rail spur to the Maryland Port Administration. This rail spur is approximately 4 acres. The value of the land is just around $900,000. In 2010, MDTA commissioned a report on what it would take to renovate the line for freight service. At that point, it was deemed that about $2.4 million was needed to bring that line up to service. Of course, now in 2021, those dollars are probably significantly increased. For these reasons, and of course, MDTA is not in the position of providing rail service to anybody, we recommend conveying this to the Maryland Port Administration for a nominal value, $1, so that they can continue rail service to their facilities at the port. At the Capital Committee earlier this month, a question was posed, who would be able to use this rail spur? Talking to my counterpart at MPA, under common carrier rail obligations, let me make sure I got that correctly, both Class A railroads, CSX and Norfolk Southern, as well as Canton Railroad, would be able to pursue commercial opportunities down the line on it.
Great.
So that's another reason why we propose to send it to convey it to the Port Authority.
Perfect.
The Port Administration.
Thank you, John. Do we have any questions for John? All right. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve MC 21-7044, excess land, Point Breeze rail spur. Member Gaines?
I'll second.
I have a second. Member Cox? Any further discussion?
Can we make sure that the dollar goes towards our appraisal cost?
Sound like a reasonable request. Any further discussion?
I do have a comment here, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Member Von Paris.
This is Member Von Paris. In terms of the Kent Railroad, how does that impact the Kent Railroad? I know we own the Kent Railroad, but how does that impact the future of the Kent Railroad?
Basically, there's no impact. The rail will be open to all rail service to pursue any type of commercial activities that are available to both Canton Railroad as well as to the Class A's, CSX, and Norfolk Southern.
I'll just answer,
Thank you.
follow up with John, too. The member Von Paris, I think we vetted it, and any interconnection with the port and Canton, I think, has been clarified. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, very good.
Any further questions or
Thank you.
discussions? Okay, I have a motion and it's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Thank you. Sir, you remain seated for the next item.
So the second proposal I'm seeking your approval on is the conveyance of the Point Breeze guard shack and pedestrian tunnel, which goes underneath Burning Highway. Currently, it's an open-air facility that connects with Maryland Port Administration's guard shack on the opposite side of Burning Highway. It's a significant liability to have it open to both the public as well as to any type of illegal activities. Our position is to the members is that conveying this to the Maryland Port Administration will allow one ownership to maintain and manage the facility. Currently, MDTA employees have no reason to cross Burning Highway. We used to park on the opposite side, and that tunnel provided safe crossing. Now the MPA has blocked that off, and we are not allowed to park over there. So there's no reason for us to own this facility and be open to that type of liability.
Makes sense. Any questions for John?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Make sure I have this straight. So they kicked us out of the parking lot, and then we're gonna turn around and give them the tunnel for no cost?
Pretty much.
Boy.
Well, the tunnel doesn't serve any purpose
I
for
got
us
it.
now. So yes, they did take over the parking. That's where they're storing the containers now. It's an important facility for the port, especially in our expansion, especially now that we're having issues throughout the world with shipping. And so this tunnel literally goes from the parking lot to our parking lot. It actually serves us no purpose whatsoever. All it is a liability to us. So yes, it makes sense to give it to
Yeah, it's a
them.
better and higher use for the parking lot,
Right.
too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds
Good.
good.
There are some utilities on the property as well as fiber optics that are controlled by both MDTA as well as MPA. Both, our access to those utilities will be maintained.
Sure.
And rights to have.
Yeah,
So.
that makes sense. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Member Gaines, and seconded by Member Gangemi. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
It looks like I'm going a little overtime here. I'm going to go to item number 9. I'm sorry, number 10. Number 9 was removed. Thank you, sir. My faithful right-hand person here keeping me on track. We're going to have an update, legislative report submitted. It's the Maryland Transportation Authority allaying fiscal stress concerns, and I believe Chantel, how are you?
Fine.
She is with us, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. For the record, Chantel Green, Director of Finance here at the Authority. Some of you may recall that during the 2021 legislative session, the legislative budget analysis document expressed concerns about future fiscal stress for the agency resulting from reduced revenues, engaging in multiple capital projects, and continuing to fund non-MDTA projects. As a result of this concern, the General Assembly adopted budget bill language restricting funds in the port as well as the airport, pending the submission of a long-term forecast on projected bond issuances, debt outstanding, and anticipated toll increases through fiscal year 2031. Enclosed within your materials, you'll find a copy of the report, and I will now provide you with an overview of that report. So turning to page 2 of the report, it begins by noting that the authority is a stable and financially strong agency that has demonstrated its adherence to prudent financial management policies, having successfully weathered the financial challenges associated with the Great Recession of 2007 and 2008, as well as the current COVID-19 pandemic, all while maintaining its capital program. The report highlights the authority's financial strength is its 3 key pillars. 1, its financial standards and board-adopted policies. 2, its strategic financial planning. And 3rd, its experienced leadership, staff, and board. The first pillar, the authority's financial standards and board-adopted policies, is discussed on page 3 of the report. I won't delve into the authority's financial standards, as this board is very familiar with them. When considering, we have the legal rate covenant, the debt service coverage policy, the unencumbered cash policy, as well as the maximum debt outstanding requirement. These policies, in conjunction with other policies that the board reviews and adopts periodically, such as the debt management policy, the revenue policy, as well as the preparation of financial forecast policy, help to ensure that the authority maintains a sound financial position and strong credit ratings. The report notes that the agency's sound financial position is evidenced by the authority's AA credit ratings, which were maintained in 2021, despite challenges associated with the COVID-19 pandemic and transitioning to a new toll collection system. The authority's second pillar, strategic and financial planning, is discussed at the bottom of page 3. The authority is strategic in the timing and execution of its capital program in an effort to ensure that its existing infrastructure is preserved while also addressing the need for expansion projects. Biannually, this board adopts a 6-year financial forecast, which ensures that there are sufficient revenues available to meet the agency's operating and capital expenses while maintaining its financial coverage ratios. The forecast, which incorporates the latest revenue and expense data, helps to determine the size and timing of bond issuances and determine the timing and magnitude of necessary toll rate increases. As noted in the report, a toll rate increase may be required to adhere to the agency's financial standards when other mitigating actions, like reducing the operating and capital budget, are insufficient to maintain the agency's financial standards. As illustrated in the graph on page 4 of the report, the authority strategically issues debt in managed cycles that entails periods of temporary increased financial leverage to accomplish major capital projects, followed by years of declining debt and fewer new money financings. The third pillar, experienced leadership, staff, and board, is discussed beginning at the bottom of page 4. The authority has a stable and experienced senior leadership team, which allows the agency to leverage the experience of its leadership to develop mitigation plans and strategies to alleviate financial challenges. The report further notes that the COVID-19 pandemic is not the first economic crisis or fiscally challenging time that the leadership here at the authority has encountered. Many members of the leadership team were here during the Great Recession of 2007 and 2008, a time when the agency was not only dealing with an economic crisis, but was also constructing 2 major mega capital projects simultaneously, the ICC and Section 100 of the I-95 ETLs. The MDTA's leadership team successfully weathered the challenges of the Great Recession of 2007 and 2008, and it has done so as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. The authority's senior leadership team is further complemented by the expertise of this board. The report notes that members of the board have decades of experience in structural engineering, transportation and land planning, as well as finance. The next section of the report addresses the concerns raised by the legislature. Page 5 of the report begins by acknowledging that the COVID-19 pandemic directly impacted the authority's revenue, which this board is aware of. That over a 10-year period, the authority's revenues are expected to be approximately $392 million less than its most recent pre-COVID-19 forecast. And that irrespective of the projected revenue change, the agency continues to maintain its financial position, which is supported by its credit ratings. The report goes on to highlight many of the measures that the agency takes to maintain its financial position, including complying with the board-adopted policies, as well as the supplementary updates that are provided to the board with respect to quarterly traffic and revenues, which Deb and Walt just presented, as well as the quarterly capital and operating budget. All of these measures are used to continually evaluate the agency's financial position and, if necessary, allow the board to take whatever mitigating actions may be required. However, despite all of these measures, toll rate increases are periodically necessary due to inflation, to support long-term population, or economy-driven system expansion. In fact, as shown on page 7, many of the agency's peers have raised tolls. When considering that over 60% of comparable tolling agencies were required to raise electronic tolls during a time in which the authority not only managed to avoid raising tolls, but actually lowered them without compromising its capital infrastructure, is indicative of the agency's ability to manage within its financial means. As shown in the table on page 8, the authority remains in compliance with existing legal requirements and the board-adopted policies through fiscal year 2029. The forecast indicates that a toll rate increase may be required in fiscal year 2030 to maintain 2 times debt service coverage. However, it's important to note that many factors, many different variables between now and fiscal year 2030 could modify the timing of that potential toll increase. Lastly, with respect to funding non-MDTA projects, the report notes that since its inception, the authority has played a critical role in providing alternative financing for other agencies. The 2 loan agreements that were executed with MDOT are consistent with the agency's mission to provide alternative financing for transportation projects, and both loans are being repaid with interest and are expected to total $11.6 million during the forecast period. The report concludes by providing a summary of the results of the fiscal year 2022 to 2031 financial forecast, which is the same forecast that was approved by this board in August. The only difference is that it expands an additional 4 years. Some of you may be wondering why the August forecast was used as opposed to the most recently November forecast that was approved. And it's quite frankly simply a matter of timing. At the time the report was prepared, the August forecast was the most recently board-approved adopted forecast. You all may recall that the authority did request an extension to the due date of the report to December 31st, so they could in fact submit the most recent forecast. And while the due date was extended by the legislature, to which we were definitely appreciative, it simply wasn't enough time for us to include the most recent forecast. But regardless of the timing, it's important to understand that the changes between the two forecasts are not significant. You may recall that the August forecast already included the annual TNR update. So the only differences between the two forecasts are the true-up of fiscal year 2021 actual expenses, the rollover of unspent capital funds from fiscal year 2021, and the inclusion of the preliminary fiscal year 23 budget that this board approved last month, which is comparable to the amount that was already included in the August forecast. In conclusion, perhaps what is most notable on the table on page 10 of the report is as a result of the authority's current financial posture, when comparing the current forecast to the November 2018 forecast, which included the inclusion of the Nice Middleton Bridge, as well as the I-95 ETO northbound extension in the CTP, the projected system-wide biennial toll rate increase is expected to occur 2 years later and is projected to be a lower amount. Again, another testament to the authority's ability to manage within its financial means. And with that, that concludes the overview of the report. Be happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chantel. Let me first say, I think that was the best summary of a very technical report that I have ever heard. So amazing job. But I think my questions were really answered as you were going along. There's a lot of things that can change between now and 2030 as things kind of cycle up and down. But I think it also illustrates how healthy we are as an organization. But any questions from members of the board?
I got a comment, I guess. I mean, we seem to manage through all the difficulties that we hit every year. But just thinking this is a business, and you make a commitment to no increase in tolls for the next 10 years. Guess what? Our costs are going up every year. We vote on them every year. And, so the only way to be able to pay for all these additional costs is more volume, I guess, if we're committed to not raising tolls. So I just think it's we're whistling from the graveyard a little bit here. Everything's got to go just right.
Well, so this is a fiscal forecast of what we see today.
Right.
And as Chantel had mentioned, different things can occur over the years. Now, obviously, we're seeing inflation rates now that we haven't seen for 60 years, right? And so, those types of things do impact it. There's two ways to do it, right? As you mentioned, raise tolls or reduce your expenses, right? That's the only two ways to do it.
That's right.
However, we have to base our today's forecast on today's circumstances. And so this is what it shows. All bets are off if this economy, continues to barrel down the inflation rate, super inflation or something, right? But yeah, I mean, that would be a decision that this board or potentially another board would make. But those are things that are out of control. And then of course, as I think you also alluded to, the increase in traffic. So right now we're still down a little bit. As traffic increases, that is going to shift it outward also. So there's differing competitive issues, if you will.
Absolutely.
And by the way, all this being a new mom.
Any other questions from members of the board?
Have they responded to our report yet?
No, not yet. I think,
They just got it last week, right?
I think they just got it last week, and then the special session was very focused on different issues. So,
They did have a couple questions on the Tiffia loan.
Yeah, wanted to know if the,
Correct.
we did get a question from them, wanted to know if the Tiffia circumstance changed anything in this report.
In this report,
And we
correct.
responded, it did not at this
No.
time.
Oh, I was just going to add, based, kind of backing on what Member Gaines said, yes, the potential is out there in the future, but we're somewhat limited as an agency as to what we can do in regards to, we can't really, we're limited on our costs to a certain extent because we have this, providing it's a facility, we can't change that. So am I correct in that? I mean, I know that there's, I'm assuming we're always looking at ways, if there is this inflation that continues, what we can do, but also at the same time recognizing our limitations going forward.
Right,
sure.
That's safe to say.
So, obviously, this organization is here for large projects, right? So, one way would not be to expand other large projects, right? So that could be a factor, but right now, and as in the past, we have two mega projects going on, the ETL expansion and the Nice Bridge. The Nice Bridge came a little sooner than we anticipated, but, we're able to factor those in, and as those drop off, then that changes the equation also, because then you're not spending that money, right? And you can shift the money more towards maintenance and stuff like that. So again, the factors change constantly depending on your capital expenditures, as I think what you're referring to, which are our expenses, and the revenue that's coming in. So yes, it really depends on the amount of projects we have. Now I will say, this administration has done an awful lot with major projects, including completing the Flats project, which was kicked down the road for many years, including the viaduct enhancement, where we tore down the entire viaduct. It was our only bridge that was totally dysfunctional. And again, that decision was kicked down the road for many, many years. So this administration has done those things, as well as the Bay Bridge and enhancements there, putting up the gate system, going to all AET. And of course, the two mega projects that I've talked about just now. For example, our ICC was a mega project in the Ehrlich administration and then flowed into the O'Malley administration. That was a cost to us. That loan has been paid off. The Garvey bonds or the Tiffia loan has been paid off. So, that expense is not there anymore. So it's constantly picking up and dropping off different expenses through the projects.
The ICC loan's been paid off and part of it's been refunded in other bonds, but the Garveys are paid off.
Right.
It's great. Any other questions from members of the board? Thank you, Chantal. Now let me turn it over to Will to give us an update on the 3G. Will, you all right? Did you get a drink?
Swallowed something down the wrong hole there. And now I got a little piece of candy in my
Just wanna
mouth.
make sure you're okay.
Hopefully I don't do that again. All right, well, good morning again, everyone. For the record, my name is Will Pines. I'm Chief Operating Officer for the MDTA. So jumping right into the presentation, in terms of schedule, we continue to work with our contractor towards the system acceptance for both contracts. And we're working on finalizing those modifications. Those are actually very near finalization at this point. I've had quite a bit of back and forth with the vendors to get those through. The schedule, they still are on course with their agile sprints to complete in the spring of next year with reaching system acceptance in the system. Most of the releases to date have focused on addressing major high priority issues that are customer facing things that impact our customer service centers, performance, et cetera. And I'll give a couple of specific examples later in the presentation. Since providing the schedule, the contractor continues to actually meet them. They actually had a planned delivery of a release last night, and that actually did go into effect last night. So they've been marching along, making good progress on that. Again, the negotiations for the modification will include a non-compensable time extension, and will modify the contract to add funds associated with the AT conversion and the backlog quantity changes. The negotiations include no costs for changes to MDTA except for some unit price updates and to account for costs for the additional quantities for AT and the backlog. Again, these changes, when we do work out and get the contractors in final form on the mods, those will be brought to the board and to the BPW for final approval. And again, we've been continuing our coordination with Do It on the updates with those negotiations, but they have given us approval to move forward. So our key focus areas that we continue to work on, as many of you probably have noticed and possibly driven, we did go live with highway speed all electronic tolling at our JFK facility. And the announcement actually went out today with some of the improvements that are planned at the Fort McHenry Tunnel that will start to be put in place actually in January for that conversion. So between Fort McHenry Tunnel and Nice Bridge that are both planned to convert to highway speed next year, the only remaining facility will be the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, which because of the interchange with Child Street, Shell Road, all of that area there, that requires a NEPA study that's ongoing. We are ensuring that proper information is being processed between the lane side and the back office, making sure that transactions are formed correctly and our customers are being charged appropriately. And whenever there's any issues found, we always prioritize fixing those kind of concerns and making sure that our customers are made whole. Again, backlog, as Deb talked about, continues to be a really key focus for us, and we're working closely with the vendors to make sure that processing is moving forward. And I'll give a little bit more details in the upcoming slide. As I mentioned, the vendors, as we move towards system acceptance, continue to release improvements to the system. A release did go in last night that made a number of key improvements and features, such as improved performance for commercial customers, for them to be able to print large statements. They were actually having a problem where their number of transactions are so large that they would press the button to generate a statement and it would just go in queue for an really extended period to where they couldn't generate. That was fixed last night. They also updated the system to ensure that if a customer doesn't have an email address on file, or when we get an undeliverable message from them, it automatically is switched that they receive a mailed statement. We also improved some of the PIN reset options to make that more convenient for our customers. We also are working through reporting and QAC structures, and particularly internally to MDTA, finance, IT, and operations are continuing to work together to make sure that our roles and responsibilities, as we sort of refine all of the processes with the vendors, we make sure that we're clear on who's going to do what, particularly in terms of performance management with the key performance indicators. Related to the call center, obviously that's been a really hot topic for everyone. As from a risk tracking standpoint, we're really closely monitoring this and have metrics on it that are submitted daily to the team. As we reported last month, we do continue to see long call wait times, but a number of IVR improvements have been made and things to try to streamline that process for our customers. And I do just want to remind the board that every customer, Monday through Friday, between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., has the option to receive a callback, where they just put in the request to receive a call and we'll call them back in the same day. That feature is also available on Saturdays between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. That's not there all of the time when you call into the IVR, because if we can't process it in the same day where we give them a call back, we don't want to tell you we'll call you back and then you don't receive a call back. but customers don't have to wait on hold if they select the option to do the callback. Backlog processing continues to be a major driver for the recent calls. As noted, the wait times are in excess of an hour and a half. We've had periods where they've been lower than that, which was reported some in the media, but we've stayed hovering around that hour and a half on most days. As the mailing of the backlog tolls increases for those video tolls, the volume of calls has significantly increased. We reported previously that in October we had received 60,000 more calls than we did in August. There were nearly 160,000 total calls in October, and that number has ticked up to 180,000 calls in November. Retention was an issue. You know, we talked about how we've been losing employees and how that's been a struggle. The good news is that the numbers have been better over the last month. We only lost 4 employees in November, which is kind of really good news. And an update from the info on the slide here, which reported that we had 93 customer service reps. We've actually moved a few folks out of training, and we're now up to 97 CIC representatives. So if you remember back in August, we were down to 60. We're now up to 97. The contractor is doing their best to leverage subcontractors and third-party dialing services to be able to help support the call center beyond their own staff, along with leveraging teleworking more to be able to have some of their own employees do call center work in a teleworking model that they think will help them with the attrition concerns, and also open up possibly to, you know, veterans, disabled folks who may not be able to report in person but really could do the work remotely in a great way. Again, you know, we see that even with the website improvements and the releases that have been ongoing that continue to make things better and alleviate specific concerns that we're hearing from the customers, despite those improvements, the call numbers continue to go up. And even though our staffing is going up, the volume is also going up. So the wait times are kind of staying around the same as what we're seeing right now. And that tells us that as the backlog, as we're mailing and getting those mails out, and some of them are now, more of them are escalating to citations, that there's more phone calls to the call center. For the last slide here, I'm just kind of talking about where we are with some of the backlog processing, and related to video transactions, we're actually up to 29.5 million video transactions that have posted to customers' accounts. That's both current and backlog together, and that allows them to make that early payment, to receive that early payment discount. Last month, member Ardinger had actually asked us what was the duration that we were allowing customers to make those early payments between when it would post to the account and when it would mail out to the customer. On average, right now, we're allowing for 69 days for customers to pay online and receive that discount before the mailing is actually going. As of December 8th, we were up to 10.4 million notices of toll due mailed. That represented 2.76 million in November, and there were almost 700,000 civil penalties that were also mailed in November. We've collected 8.3 million in early payments and 27.3 million on notices of toll due payments. We also have commenced the mailings to customers with more than 25 notices of toll due. You remember, to try to give them a greater opportunity to receive early discount, we gave them a buck slip advance notice and gave them almost 2 months where they would be able to go on and do that in advance of mailing it. And but those mailings have commenced. We also are processing control runs right now with Central Collection Unit and the MDTA. And Finance gave obviously more detailed presentation on the status of backlog associated with traffic and revenue. But, you know, big picture, we're approximately 85% complete with EasyPass transponder-based backlog. That's 15.6 million transactions sent to the back office, and 42% complete on the video backlog. backlog, which is 12.1 million transactions sent to the back office. So with that, the last comment is, as Deb mentioned, our biggest risk with backlog processing is with those away agencies, with the IAG, and the constant coordination that has to happen with them. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on the 3G program.
Thanks, Will. It does sound like we're making some progress.
Absolutely.
My questions, I think you answered most of mine. I was really wanted to get an understanding of where we were with kind of fixing some of the issues on the website and where we were with hiring in the call centers. I think the volumes are going to be there for a little while, so hiring is going to be critical. And I have had conversations with some of our counterparts in other states, and they're dealing with very similar issues, and so it's across the board. We just happened to go into AET in the middle of a pandemic, and that kind of created other challenges for us. But any questions for Will from members of the board?
Yeah, I'll share anecdotally on customer service. Some of us looked at recently Disney, who's very well known for their phenomenal customer service, right now is experiencing call wait times in excess of, I think it was 3 hours. Wow. So it's
longer than the roller coaster line.
I was going to say, longer than the ride.
Not that that's in any way taking
Right.
our foot off the gas to make things
No.
better for us, but it is an issue in the industry as a whole.
Absolutely. Thanks, Will. I know, just thank you for the team for a lot of work on it. I know I'm personally pushing on this issue pretty hard to get it resolved, and you guys are bearing with me at the same time, so thank you all. Any questions from members of the board? Thanks, Will. I think we're going over to Jim. Give us an update on our major projects. The other Jim.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Jim Harkness. I am the Chief Engineer for MDTA, and I'll be presenting my quarterly verbal update on our major projects that exceed $40 million. So for this quarter, we have 9 projects currently on the list. 6 of those contracts are under construction. 2 are technically in the procurement phase, and 1 is still in the design phase. The first project on our list is the 3G project, which Will just provided you an update on that one, so I'll kind of skip that and go to our next project, which is the replacement of the Nice Middleton Bridge project. Over the last quarter, the team down there has been very busy. I think you were all afforded the opportunity to visit that project and see firsthand, and the team has steadily continued working since your visit, and so at this point, they have poured out 3 deck runs, so 3 deck panels are poured out there. They are continuing to drive the piles on the Virginia side. They are installing the pier caps, piers as well, and they continue with fabricating the concrete girders, and they are also installing those as well. So that is continuing. They have completed most of the asphalt pavement on both approach roadways on both shores, and we have, as Will mentioned, AET coming next year. So next week we anticipate the structure, the gantry, to be erected down there in preparation for the conversion to AET. So for our next project, we have FT 2651, which was the rehabilitation of the vent fans in the Fort McHenry Tunnel. So that project, again, we have 48 fans, which we are just performing rehab on those fans. We have 16 of those out of service. We have completed 8 of the exhaust fans, and we have 4 of the supply fans completed. That leaves them working on the 4 remaining supply fans. We have also, over the last quarter, completed the motor control center testing, and we were able to observe that testing. And so those units will be delivered next month, and then that will allow us to commence with some of the fan testing on the units that have been rehabilitated. Then moving on to our next contract. This is BB 3014, which is our emergency Bay Bridge all electronic tolling conversion. So this is the project that is on the western shore on the eastbound side of US 50, and they will continue with trenching and boring for the ITS and communications and the power that are required to feed the systems that set up that automated lane closure. There is also sign structures and gantry foundations.
Jim, while we're on this, let me ask you, Jim, how far are you along as far as the lane closure facility at this point?
So we, on this particular project, which is on the western shore,
right.
We have a fall completion scheduled for this project. So we're on schedule, and we're erecting the gantries that are going to have these lane use controls and all the signs and associated foundations with that. Good. Let's see. So they will, over the next few months, continue with those gantry tower installs, as well as installing the structures over the roadway to hold those lane use controls. They're installing lighting, and they have their paving completed. So down there's a fresh pavement mat on that eastbound US 50 approach. I guess probably in the last quarter, they've also shifted traffic from what was our interim condition to more towards the median to sort of flatten that curve. So it's a nice gradual approach through the old toll plaza area. There's nothing remaining of the toll plaza, but they have shifted traffic, and it is now paved as well. So moving on, our next project is on the Kennedy Highway. This is one of the two projects that are included in the ETL expansion program. This is the first one is KH 3009, which is the I-95 Northern Transition express lanes being constructed from Maryland 43 to Maryland 152. There's a lot of activity out there on the right shoulder. They're clearing trees and grubbing. They're doing a lot of excavation over there for the widening. They are also installing the stormwater management and monitoring the 108-inch Baltimore City water main that runs along that southbound outside shoulder there. They are working in an area near the big gunpowder. That area has a retaining wall, and so they have sort of been working there and working with the community there to work on noise and their technique there. So they switched up their technique to sort of accommodate some of the citizens' concerns, because it's very close to the homes right there. And so they've, since kind of switching up their construction method, we haven't had any further complaints, so that's been good. Our next project is still on the Kennedy Highway and also part of the ETL program. It's KH 3019. This is the Maryland 152 interchange reconstruction. This project was awarded last month, and we issued the contractor a limited NTP to begin his work out there. So he is currently mobilizing and establishing the limits of disturbance in the area, and he will, in the next few weeks, start to initiate maintenance of traffic on I-95 for his activities there. The contractor did just yesterday close the Old Mountain Road Park and Ride, as well as the overpass, the Old Mountain Road overpass over 95. Old Mountain Road on each side is not yet closed, but that will occur in the spring, where we'll modify the access that has historically accessed our ramp. We'll have to eliminate that. And
Is
Was that Myers' job? Is that Myers' job?
That one is the Wagman-Myers joint venture.
Doesn't surprise me.
Okay, so with that project, that's the last of our major projects that are currently in construction. And then, so now we have two in procurement. So our first one is, again, on the Kennedy Highway, but this one is KH 3024, I-95, and Belvedere Road interchange. This project was approved by the board earlier in this meeting. And so I guess basically we have award expected to follow here in January with an NTP expected in February on that project. So. And our second project that's in procurement is HT 2709. That's the envelope and switchgear replacements for the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel vent buildings. So again, this project, addresses issues that we have with water infiltration, the facade, roof replacements, as well as the large electrical switchgear that power the tunnel and all the associated electrical equipment with that. We also are taking care of some of the fire pumps, which help with our fire protection in the tunnel, and we have to add elevators to the vent buildings for code reasons. So all that's included in that project. That project is advertised right now, and we have received comments. We're addressing those comments, and we hope to open bids in January. And then the last project is still in design. That's BB 2726. That's eastbound Bay Bridge deck replacement. That's our CMAR job, which for the pre-construction services was awarded last July. And so the contractor is working with us, contributing to the team advancing the design on that project. We're producing 60% design package in February, and so with that kind of schedule, we don't expect major construction, much before the end of this next year.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Really good update. I'm going to ask you a question that you probably won't answer for me because I know it makes people like you nervous. But when I look at the Nice Bridge, it seems ahead of schedule to me. Based when I look at the plans compared to where we are, it seems ahead. I won't ask you to answer that because I know there's a lot of things. But it feels ahead of schedule for me.
The contractor is, he's got a lot of staff on site, a lot of material on site. He is definitely working, and we are definitely hitting that schedule soon.
Great. Thanks, Jim. I know it's a lot left to do to declare victory on ahead of schedule, but it's the progress on the Nice Bridge, when I see it, is pretty remarkable. It really is.
Yeah, they've
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The team has done an excellent job, in terms of, what we've discussed in the stresses on supply chain and those kind of issues right through it. They've been forward looking, and, it's paying off in the progress that you can see.
Not an easy project. I mean, that's a pretty complex project and complex channels in that water and things like that. But no, I understand you don't want to declare victory because there's a lot of things that could send that in the other direction, but it does feel remarkable to me. But
yes.
Any questions for Jim, for members of the board? Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
We'll shift over to the IT side with David Goldsboro. Good to see you, David.
Yes, good to see you too, Greg. So good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is David Goldsboro. I'm Director of IT for the Transportation Authority. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide a quarterly update on the activities surrounding the Division of Information Technology. As of December 16th, today, the Division of Information Technology maintains an active portfolio of 19 projects. That's held very constant. If you recall, over the last several updates, that portfolio has been very constant. Occasionally, we will have one project that will roll off, and it doesn't take long for a new one to roll on. It's because people want automation, right? But that's a good thing for us. We continue to provide post-go-live support for the third-generation tolling system that Will gave a great update on earlier. We will keep the resources in place for program management and some analysis that's happening until we officially move into operations and maintenance, and then we'll revisit what that looks like in terms of level of effort for IT. We still are experiencing some recruitment challenges because of the on-site work presence. As I mentioned last time, we're looking at using some additional telework days over and above our traditional one for attracting potential employees. I do want to give an update of something I did find interesting, and maybe it's a change in direction, but we did have someone that left probably about 6 to 8 months ago for the classic more money and I get to stay home. It was another government agency. They initially thought that they were going to maintain a full-time telework presence. They've changed that and decided to require at least IT to be on site. That translated into a 3-hour commute for this individual. So it definitely, I think that there's some companies, I think I said last time, I believe next year it will be a different conversation around what telework looks like. I still think there's going to be some adjustments, but we're definitely seeing that this cross-state line type thing might be a little more challenging than maybe what folks thought. Just stay home and work and we'll get it all done. But, so that was an interesting development. Not only did they return, but they returned full time. So interesting update there. I mentioned last time, and I was thinking that this was going to happen. We did begin penetration testing with cyber defense. We worked with Ken and Ron on that.
Great.
They got knee deep right away. To this point, actually, they're testing the internal portion of our network this time. About 2 years ago, they did the external portion. So far, they've given us a few recommendations around how permissioning is handled. We've implemented that very proactively, and I'm proud of the work that our group has done with them. They've really been a great organization to work with. They've kept us abreast of anything that they've found. Should have a final report from them in the early January timeframe, so I'll look forward to giving the board an update as that stands when we receive that. Some of our significant initiatives, always cybersecurity is at the top. We did receive a request from State Do It and from Ron just around maybe assisting with some of the recovery efforts, so we're looking at what we can do there. Our police body cameras, we have started to get a little bit more aggressive because the legislation that went in place for the July 2023 requirement to have body-worn cameras for certain police force. So I think we'll be okay there. I think the procurement is moving along, so I think we're looking very good there. Again, post-go-live support for 3G. Our enterprise budget system, we've got that stood up. We've done a few training sessions. It's an excellent tool, and we are looking to put our FY23 budgets into that system. I think before the end of the year is the request from finance. We're still working on the conversion of our purchasing card system, and of course migrating the contract data from Dynamics, which is our financial system, as you know, to Maximo, which is where our purchases will originate. So it's just a lot of tedious things getting the contracts moved over, some line items that need to match up before we convert that data. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my update.
Thank you, David. I know
We'll take some questions.
I've had a hyper-focus myself on the cybersecurity issues, both operationally and with our administrative systems. So thank you for doing that as well.
Of course.
And also thank you for staying engaged in the 3G side with our website, because it's really, having your voice there is really important. Any questions for members of the board? Okay. Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Great. Now we'll shift over to Tawanda for an update on our Civil Rights Fair Practices Socioeconomic Program. You got to give us a little energy this morning and wake us up.
Look.
Oh, look out.
Come on now. Nobody woke up. You didn't wake up to be mediocre today. You woke up to be awesome. Okay, I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna embarrass my colleagues and my team and my bosses in the room, so I gotta be good. Okay. So, greetings, Chair, board members, Executive Director Ports, MDTA's leadership, employees, and community. My name is Tawanda Livingston, the Director of the Maryland Transportation Authority Division of Civil Rights and Fair Practices. I'm joined today by our DBE Program Manager, Ms. Methia Goodrum. On behalf of the Civil Rights and Fair Practice Office and our Maryland Transportation Authority team, I'm sharing our first quarter performance as it relates to our socioeconomic program, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program for our NICE Middleton Bridge project. So may I call your attention to item 14 in your board information. The DBE program performance period I'll be reporting on today is for the first quarter of fiscal year 2022. And it covers the period of July 1st, 2021 to September 30th, 2021. Our DBE programmatic results are driven by our contracts that were designated for federal assistance, which are associated with the NICE Middleton Bridge project. These contracts have been earmarked for federal assistance via the TIFIA loan. May I call your attention to page 4 of the memorandum. Table 1 in the memorandum depicts the NICE Middleton, see, that Delaware in me just came out. Okay, NICE Middleton Bridge Project DBE program subcontractor utilization as of September 30th. This information is based on contract payments. The project consists of 5 contracts with the estimated value of $531 million. Contract number NB0543 is the bridge replacement project with a contract value of approximately $463 million. It had a notice to proceed of March 17, 2020, and a DBE subcontracting goal of 15.47%. This contract's DBE utilization was 8.59% as of September 30th, or approximately $21.1 million. The contract's burn rate, which is based on the total payments paid to the joint venture of Skanska, Corman, and McLean, was approximately 52.98%. Contract number MB3003 for our campus improvements has a contract value of $23.4 million, had a notice to proceed of August 28, 2020, and a DBE subcontracting goal of 23%. This contract's DBE utilization was 21.99%, or approximately $2 million. The contract's burn rate, which is based on the total payments to the prime W.M. Schlosser, was approximately 39.66%. Contract numbers AE 3049, 3050, and 3051 are the 3 construction management inspection contracts, which were awarded to Rummel, Klepper and Call, KCI Joint Venture, Gannett Fleming and Volkert Joint Venture, and A. Morton Thomas Associates with Whitney, Bailey, Cox, and NAMI Joint Venture, respectively. The notice to proceed for these contracts was November 14, 2018, and they all have a DBE subcontracting goal of 26%. These 3 contracts DBE performances were 13.53%, or $439,000, 19.67%, or $639,000, 17.58%, or $543,000, respectively. These contracts' burn rates, based on payments to the primes, were approximately 21.64%, 21.66%, and 20.59%, respectively. Moving on to page number 5 of the memorandum, Table 2 depicts the number of DBE subcontractors utilized by contract as of September 30th and the geographic location of participating DBE subcontracting firms. As of September 30th, there were 53 active DBE subcontractors working on the NICE Middleton Bridge project, of which 37 DBE subcontractors are based in the state of Maryland. Call your attention to page 6 of the memorandum. This is where the workforce overview starts, and it consists of tables 3A and 3B. On page 6, table 3A depicts new hires by geographic location as of September 30th.
There were a total of 140 new hires working on the project, of which 59 are Maryland residents. On page 7, Table 3B, is the on-the-job training update, or affectionately known as OJT program or training, as of September 30th. This is specifically related to the bridge replacement project, which has a OJT goal of 11 trainees. Active trainees as of September 30th was 6, and there were 7 graduated trainees, and these trainees were retained on the project. On page 8, I'd like to call your attention to 2 photographs. These photographs were taken on September the 29th. We conducted a site visit. MDTA Civil Rights Compliance Team, the Federal Highway Administration, Division of Office Civil Rights Engineering Construction Team, and the Tri-County Council of Southern Maryland Job Source was out there for this site visit. So the photo on the left of the page, of page 8, is a view of the new bridge superstructure. Interlock Steelworkers, a DBE subcontractor based in Mount Airy, Maryland, was performing the precast girder work on this day. On the right side of page 8 is the photo of DT Reed Steel Company, another DBE subcontractor firm based in Chesapeake, Virginia, tying rebar for the bridge piers. On page 9 and 10, this is an excerpt from Skansen Corman and McLean Joint Ventures newsletter highlighting the success of the on-the-job training program for the bridge replacement contract, contract number MB0543. The construction of the new nice Middleton Bridge will forever change the way generations travel and the tolling industry. It has also impacted generations in another important way through job creation and skill building through the OJT program that is associated with our bridge replacement contract. In partnership with Tri-County Council Southern Maryland Job Source, the joint venture featured an OJT trainee and an OJT graduate, Mr. Parrish Thompson, a Charles County, Maryland native. Being a part of this project, let me get to my next notes. The OJT program has forever, ever changed the trajectory of Mr. Thompson's life and his family lives. While working on the Nice Bridge project, Mr. Thompson demonstrated a strong work ethic and a passion for construction. Mr. Thompson started on the project as a laborer when he was recommended for the Euler OJT program. After successfully completing and graduating from that program, Mr. Thompson was immediately placed into the mechanic OJT program. We have a brief video clip thanks to Natalie and IT and Percy and Mary, courtesy of our compliance team that's out there. Damian Simpson was able to interview Mr. Parrish Thompson.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we currently have with us Parrish Thompson. He's one of our currently 6 enrolled OJT candidates in the new Nice Middleton Bridge project. Parrish originally came to us as a laborer who then completed the Euler program and is currently 80% through his mechanics program. Let's have a conversation with Mr. Parrish today. Good afternoon, Parrish. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking. So, how do you enjoy working on the new Nice Middleton Bridge project, Parrish?
I enjoy it pretty much. It's fast-paced. I love being on the water. I love meeting new people from different areas. Love working with new different equipment every day.
So, it's to my understanding, you are a Charles County resident?
Yes.
What city from particularly?
Bryansville, Maryland.
Congratulations. So, with this being your second classification, can you tell us a little bit about your story, how you started, where you started, and where you're currently at now?
Well, I currently was on and off, kind of working for myself, kind of working for my father, and then I wanted some steadier money, steadier paycheck, so therefore my mother had screenshotted a post from Facebook or whatever, and she sent it to me one day, and it had the information about the Tri-County, had the Tri-County information on it. So I contacted Miss Jackie, I think Chambers, I think her last name is, and I got in contact with her, and she told me everything I had to do. So I filled out all my information, I sent it back to her, and that's all contacted me within a day and a half.
Nice, thank you for that. Can you remember, salary-wise, what you were at when you originally started and what you're currently at now?
What I originally started at was $25.32 with $8.32 fringe. Right now, I'm currently at $32.64 with $8.94 fringe.
Nice, nice. Well, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Parrish, for your time. It has been my pleasure and honor to sit here and have a conversation with you today. We hear nothing but great things about you and the work that you're doing out here. Please continue the great work, and we will speak to you soon. Thank you.
We'd like to thank Skanza Corman and McLean Joint Venture, the Tri-County Council of Southern Maryland Job Source, and our very own DBE Program Manager, Normitha Goodrum, and our DBE and Civil Rights and Fair Practice Compliance team that are the boots on the ground for this major project. Ms. Cheryl Randall, Ms. Kelsha Sellers, Mr. Damian Simmons, Ms. Loretta Caldwell for their unwavering support with ensuring socioeconomic inclusion on this program. We also want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Mr. Thompson for allowing us to highlight his success and the value of the OJT program to our diverse communities. And if you may indulge me just a little bit longer, Miss Normitha Goodrum will be leaving us in January to tackle her next great adventure. So we wanted to publicly thank her for her staunch leadership and her unwavering support of our Nice Bridge Project DBE program. Normitha has not only provided excellent oversight, support, and leadership with our DBE programmatic efforts for the Nice Bridge Project, she has been an excellent leader within the Division of Civil Rights and Fair Practices. She continues to be a go-to leader, coach, and mentor. Normitha has been instrumental in shaping the future and the culture of excellence within our division. Her partnership with me has been simply priceless. So on behalf of MDTA, CRFP, and the Nice Bridge Project stakeholders, we'd like to say thank you for your unwavering service. Normitha, we see you, we acknowledge you, we celebrate you, and we salute you for a job well done.
Thank you.
And wrapping up, on behalf of the Division of Civil Rights and Fair Practices, we would like to wish the board, Executive Director Ports, MDTA leadership team, and our fellow employees in our community a happy and joyous holiday season. This concludes the Civil Rights and Fair Practices team first quarter report for fiscal year 2022. We are available to answer the board's questions related to the DBE program for the Nice Middleton Bridge Project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tawanda. First, just kind of two comments from me. First, Mr. Thompson is the reason we do those types of programs. Absolutely. You know, there's just so much talent out there that just needs a little bit of a hand and a little bit of somebody that's willing to give them an opportunity, and they just take it, and it's just great to see those. Second, at the risk of dating myself, I was a super young senior manager at SHA the first time I got to work with Normitha, and I hope you took advantage of every minute, because she is one of the most special, talented people I've ever worked with. And I learned more by just watching her. I learned more when I had questions. She always welcomed me into her corner office. And, you know, when I was young, you don't want to go to the corner office. It was always scared to go to the corner office. But she always welcomed me and helped me work through anything I was working through. But you will be missed. I lit up a little bit when I first heard your name on one of our agendas. I didn't realize you were back. But just a special person, so thank you for being with us, and I hope you took advantage of every minute you got with her.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Director. I'm surprised. I didn't know I was going to be roasted today. But thank you, and it's been a pleasure working at MDTA. And I've had a connection with our executive director in years past as well. So it's been a great pleasure working on this mega project, and I'm hoping that I'm leaving with things in order, and it will continue, and that all of the civil rights program, all of its components, the DBE side, the employment side, the OJT side, is going to move forward successfully. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Normitha. Really, I think back, my daughter, who's in her third year of college, was an infant when I first started working with Normitha. So, any questions from members of the
Go
board?
back a ways, yeah.
No, but I just want to say one thing. So, Normitha, I just want you to know that Greg's not just trying to be nice. He's always nice, but yeah, he's not trying to be nice and say these comments because you're leaving. Because I will share with you that he had very similar comments to me, one-on-one, about you. So I know it's important to see what's said in the front room, but it's important to know what's said in the back room.
I appreciate
And he was very, very complimentary, and of course, so was I, but I just wanted to share that with you also.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions from members of the board? Thank you. Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you, you too. Thank you. Thank you, Norma.
And with that, I will turn it over to our esteemed Executive Director, Mr. Ports, for his Executive Director update.
I'm going to write that down, Steve. So first of all, I just want to say that in the background. Good one. I love it. I will say this is going to be a little bit longer than usual because it is year end, and so we go over a lot of things throughout the organization. So I do want to start off by reminding the board that per the MDTA board approval process, the tolling plan for I-95 express toll lanes, you all give me the right, if you will, to approve the holiday schedule for the upcoming calendar year, which resets the toll schedule on certain holidays to a Saturday or Sunday toll schedule based on the different patterns for that holiday. And so I'm notifying the board that I did approve the ETL holiday toll pricing schedule for calendar year 2022. And so just to let you know, and we can provide that to you. This year, I also want to mention the Toys for Tots campaign was a great success. As you know, over the course of 3 days, December 7th through the 9th, the 32nd annual Toys for Tots drive raised more than $2,400 in cash donations and collected more than 2,900 toys for children. To support this year's efforts, MDTA Police sold a first of its kind 2.5-inch challenge coin, which I believe could be used as a weapon, by the way. It's so heavy. Each 3D challenge coin was $15, and 100% of the profits went towards purchasing additional toys for the children this year. The challenge coin raised sales, and we also had an additional $1,525 from that. And I want to extend a big thank you to the MDTA Police and all of our employees for the continuous support of this program. Actually, Manny, who is chief of staff for Kevin, is the one who designed that Toys for Tots challenge coin. So even our own guy designed it. It's pretty cool. As the board knows, this past year has not been without its challenges, revenue constraints due to COVID, along with transitioning to our new tolling system, Drive Easy MD, during COVID. Despite these challenges, the more than 1,500 MDTA employees work tirelessly day in and day out to carry out the MDTA's mission. Since this is the last board meeting of 2021, as I have done in previous years, I'll highlight for the board some of the MDTA's notable 2021 accomplishments. The MDTA had a strong strategic plan, which includes 5 goals, but there was one missing piece. I think I mentioned that to you before, and that missing piece was how. How is the MDTA accomplishing its goals? How are employees supporting the goals? And how does it all tie together? This year, the MDTA developed a roadmap which includes actions that highlight the focus for MDTA over the next 18 months. And as part of the MDTA 50-year commemoration, the Office of Policy and Innovation and Performance spearheaded a project to bring virtual interactive representation of an actual MDTA toll booth on the MDTA website. MDTA's Division of Procurement participated in 4 MBE small business Get Your Foot in the Door outreaches. They participated in the virtual annual Business Opportunities and Entrepreneurial Training Summit hosted by MDOT and the Maryland Department of General Services and the University System of Maryland, and awarded 17 contracts. And I'm proud to also highlight that Jamal Turner won the 2020 Maryland Public Purchasing Association Buyer of the Year Award. The Office of Human Resources and Workforce Development relaunched a career development program with new direct bill partners and incorporated e-learning trainings into the employee orientation process. The Division of Information Technology supported and continued to support the remote workforce while also maintaining on-site presence for the IT help desk. The division is also standing up a new MDTA budget tool and starting training for the workforce. The Division of Civil Rights and Fair Practices reported that for fiscal year 2021, Minority Business Enterprise Program contract participation was 19.67%, or approximately 105 million of the 538 million total contracts awarded, which is 68.4 million increase over the 37.3 million that was awarded to MBE firms in the year 2020. For the Small Business Reserve Program, the MDTA's performance for FY21 was 4%, represent almost $21 million of the total contract payments of $522 million, which is approximately 800,000 increase over the designated payments for 2020. The MDTA's Asset Control and Damage Recovery Team, which is part of the Office of Environment, Safety, and Risk Management, successfully completed 9 storeroom audits, closed 340 insurance claims, and secured over $1 million through insurance recovery. The Office of Environmental Safety and Risk Management developed and delivered Environment and Safety Committee training, facilitated discussions between MDOT, BGE, and MDTA operations to kick off electric charging station installation at the Bay Bridge facility. And the environmental team worked on a new vendor to ensure environmental compliance is met regarding storage, transportation, and recycling of transponders. The Division of Finance was awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by the Government Financial Officers Association of the United States and Canada, and the MDTA received this year this award for its comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year 2020. Year to date, MDTA police have made 1,042 impaired driving arrests. This is the most in the 7 years previous. On December 10th, 25 personnel completed the 8th Leadership in Police Organizations, that's the LPO session, 3-week intensive leadership training course developed by the Internal Chiefs of Police Association, and the police will soon be launching the MDTA Police Facebook page. In April, we launched the Drive Easy MD, offering payment options like pay by plate and a 15% early payment discount, which you heard about a little earlier today. To accompany the launch of Drive Easy MD, we utilize a new form of digital advertising in tandem with our more traditional avenues. This new advertising method featured videos and graphics delivered on Amazon platforms, resulted in over 8,500 new EasyPass signups over the course of the 4 campaigns. And thanks to the hard work of the Division of Operations and Office of Engineering and Construction, a number of projects have achieved significant milestones. The 895 bridge project was completed under budget and ahead of schedule, replacing MDTA's only structurally deficient bridge. The JFK facility was opened to highway speed AET. We opened the I-95 auxiliary lane between Maryland 152 and Maryland 24, and the park and ride at 924 and 24 as part of the I-95 ETL northbound extension. And at the nice Middleton Bridge, where'd she go? She left. Installation of steel pipes for the fender ring have been completed, and 800 concrete piles were installed. We anticipate pile driving to be completed by Christmas. The setting of structural steel barriers has begun. This equates to approximately 1.5 million pounds of steel. We have completed the concrete placements for the foundations and the substructures on the Maryland spans, and for 3 channel spans, concrete replacement decks has begun. With that, you can see that we've been extremely busy and very successful over the past year in pretty much every part of this organization. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say it's because of the very talented, excellent employees that we have throughout MDTA.
Thank you so much, Jim. I couldn't agree more. I just have one very important technical question. I still have 2 toys in the backseat of my car. Drive, is that over, or can I?
I'm sure we can fix it.
Mr. Executive Director. I already spoke with Manny. Just give me your donation, and
Okay.
he will come and pick it up.
That would be great. I've been, every time I've attempted to, I've been sidetracked. So,
I'm shocked.
any questions from members of the board? Thanks, Jim. Great. With that, we've completed our open session portion of our board today. So we now have we reached the closed session portion of our agenda. The closed session is scheduled for board members and designated staff. Per Maryland Open Meetings Act, the MDTA Board will meet in closed session under the general provisions, Article Sections 3-305, B7 and 8 to receive legal advice and discuss a potential litigation regarding a contract claim for contract number MA-549. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The time is now 11:33, and we will now go into closed session. Some of us taking part of the closed session will now go in a separate room to conduct the closed session. We will return to this room once the closed session is concluded. We appreciate your patience as we continue to watch the live stream if you desire.
We should have
That's
both
fine.
Member Carroll and Member Von Paris on the phone.
Agree.
Thank you all. We are back from our closed session. And we voted to go back into open, correct, Natalie? Yes. Okay. So for the record, we voted to go back into open session. So we are back in open session. The time is now 12:01. The board has completed its closed session. I will now need a motion to ratify the approval to authorize staff to negotiate a settlement of contract claim MA-549 and a not-to-exceed amount of $6.2 million, including resolution of remaining terms and conditions, and issue for contract closeout. Have a motion? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. At this point, our agenda is complete. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Motion carries. That concludes our MDTA board meeting. And at 12:02, wish everyone a wonderful holiday.